You had a thought, a really good one. Maybe it was the perfect comeback, maybe it was where you left your keys, maybe it was your password, maybe it was literally why you walked into this room. And now, gone. Absolute memory bankruptcy. Your brain really said, short-term memory? Never heard of her? The weird thing is, memory feels like it should work better than this. Like, your brain can somehow store the lyrics to a song you haven't heard since 2014, the exact smell of your third grade classroom, and that one deeply unpleasant memory of accidentally calling your teacher mom. But the grocery list you repeated to yourself 4 seconds ago? Deleted. Gone. Sent straight into the same void where dreams and tax receipts go? That's because forgetting isn't actually a bug. It's a feature, which is honestly the most disrespectful software design choice evolution ever made. Because we tend to think memory is like a hard drive. Information goes in, stays there forever, and comes back whenever needed. But cognitive psychology says memory is less like cloud storage and more like a badly managed group chat where half the messages disappear before anyone reads them. Some memories stay because they're emotionally charged. That's why happy memories hit so hard. Your first crush, your first win, that one compliment from 7 years ago you still replay like it's a Netflix special. But unpleasant memories and traumatic memories, those can stick even harder. Your brain loves drama. Emotionally intense moments get priority because your hippocampus is constantly deciding what deserves the jump from short-term memory into long-term memory. And unfortunately, embarrassment has VIP access. That's why you can still vividly remember that time you tripped in public in 2016, but not what someone told you this morning. Evolution apparently decided social humiliation was critical survival information, which, to be fair, in caveman times getting clowned by the tribe probably was dangerous. Now this raises the obvious question. If memory is selective, can we control what gets forgotten? And the answer is, kind of. Welcome to the terrifyingly sci-fi world of memory suppression, selective forgetting, and what is basically the first draft of memory erasure. Yes, like eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. Which, fun fact, comes from a line by Alexander Pope. How happy is the blameless vestal's lot, the world forgetting by the world forgot. Very poetic way of saying, honestly, I wish I could uninstall this memory. Now, most forgetting is passive forgetting. You didn't choose to forget your keys. Your brain just decided the exact parking spot from Tuesday was less important than remembering the chorus of a random TikTok sound. Passive forgetting is useful though. Imagine remembering every single place you ever parked. You'd spend 40 minutes in the lot trying to determine whether today's car location is real or just Tuesday DLC. So the brain trims details constantly. But there's also active forgetting. This is basically the evil twin of memorization. Instead of rehearsing something so it sticks, you repeatedly block it. Scientists test this with artificial memory tests because real personal memories are messy. One of the most famous is the think-no-think paradigm, which is basically see a word pair memory like dog apple. Then force yourself not to think of apple when you see dog. So naturally your brain immediately thinks apple, 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 apple. Which is exactly why this is so funny. But surprisingly, repeated thought suppression actually works. A study in the Journal of Neuroscience used fMRI to track blood flow while people tried to remember or intentionally suppress word pairs. When participants suppressed recall, activity dropped in the hippocampus, the region involved in building long-term memory. At the same time, activity increased in the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, also known as the DLPFC. This part handles executive planning, focus, and basically the CEO role of your brain. So the DLPFC seems to step in and say, nope, we're not doing this memory today, which creates recall inhibition. Basically, your brain installs a temporary firewall between the cue and the memory. And the wild part is the more often people practice suppression, the fewer memory details they could later retrieve. Another study in the Journal of Experimental Psychology expanded this from random word pairs to personal memories and event recall. Same result. People didn't fully delete the memory, but they remembered fewer details and the emotional charge was weaker. So yes, your brain can actually become better at forgetting, which sounds useful until you realize half of us are already world champions at forgetting things we were supposed to do. Then neuroscience got even weirder. Researchers started looking at genes, proteins, and how neurons physically reshape neural pathways during forgetting. In tiny worms called Conorhabditis elegans, scientists found the Musashi gene helps control forgetting by regulating proteins that remodel neural connections. Basically, if the pathways don't change, the worm memory sticks longer, so forgetting might literally require your brain's roads to be under constant construction, which honestly explains why your thoughts feel like traffic. Then in rats, researchers studying fear conditioning found something even darker. A gene called the ARC gene, crucial for long-term memory formation, also helps rewrite emotional memory. So if a rat learns, a cage is scary, repeated safe exposure slowly changes that memory. But if scientists use gene interference to block ARC during memory reconsolidation, the fear memory doesn't come back the same way, meaning the memory itself gets edited during recall, not erased, edited. Like your brain opens the file every time you remember it and accidentally hits save. This is huge for neuroscience, because it suggests memories aren't fixed archives, they're living drafts. Every recall is a rewrite, which explains why your stories get better every time you tell them. Now, obviously this opens the single most dangerous door imaginable, memory manipulation. Because right now, the forgetting techniques we understand mostly weaken memories. They blur the edges, they reduce memory details, they make certain emotional memories feel less intense. But what happens if one day we get really good at it? Like not just, I can't remember exactly what happened. More like, that entire chapter of my life has been factory reset. Would people use it to remove heartbreak? The breakup that still randomly attacks at 2 a.m. when a certain song comes on? Would we delete grief? The painful weight of losing someone, along with the 1,000 tiny details tied to them? Would we erase traumatic memories to help people heal? Because on paper that sounds incredible. The ability to reduce suffering through precise memory suppression could completely transform therapy, PTSD treatment, and emotional regulation. But then comes the much darker question. How much pain can you remove before you also remove the lesson attached to it? Because your personal memories, even the horrible ones, are not just random files in storage. They shape your instincts, your habits, your boundaries, your trust issues, your taste in people, your sense of humor. Even your cringe memories, the ones where you said something embarrassing in front of the whole class and still replay it like a director's cut, those become part of your social calibration. They teach you what not to do. They make you sharper. Delete enough of those moments, and you might accidentally erase the exact experiences that made you wiser. This is where the identity change problem gets scary, because we like to imagine the self as something stable. Like there's some permanent you underneath all the noise. But modern neuroscience suggests the opposite. The self is basically a stitched-together story built from remembered experiences. So if you start editing the story, are you still the same person? Or are you just the latest patch update? Because if I remove your worst breakup, your biggest failure, your most humiliating mistake, and the time you trusted the wrong person, I'm not just deleting pain. I'm deleting context. I'm deleting the reasons you became cautious, resilient, funny, ambitious, guarded, or compassionate. That's not just healing, that's authorship. Now bring this into the legal system and suddenly the whole thing becomes a nightmare. Imagine eyewitness memory in a criminal case. Could someone intentionally weaken their crime memory before testifying? Could a witness suppress the face they saw? Could a guilty person use selective deletion to genuinely no longer remember what they did? Because that creates chaos. The justice system already struggles with unreliable recall. Human memory is notoriously reconstructive. People misremember faces, timelines, and events all the time. Now imagine adding deliberate memory manipulation into that. Suddenly, I don't remember stops sounding like an excuse and starts sounding scientifically plausible. Even a therapy gets morally complicated, because what if helping someone process trauma accidentally changes the event itself through memory reconsolidation? Every time a memory is recalled, it becomes vulnerable to rewriting. So at what point does healing become revision? At what point does reducing emotional pain become accidental, selective forgetting? And most importantly, who gets to decide? Doctors, patients, courts, governments, insurance companies, tech companies with a premium memory wellness subscription? Because if there is ever a real-world version of memory erasure, it won't stay in therapy offices for long. It would reach advertising, politics, interrogation, relationships, corporate scandals. Imagine being able to weaken a bad customer experience, blur, political outrage, reduce fear associated with a brand, or erase your ex without touching the playlist. The line between mental health treatment and social control gets terrifyingly thin. And yet, despite all that, forgetting fast still isn't always a flaw. Sometimes your brain is doing exactly what it should. Sometimes it's protecting your focus from irrelevant clutter. Sometimes it's clearing out noise so long-term memory can prioritize what actually matters. Sometimes it's helping painful experiences fade just enough for you to move forward. And sometimes it just decided your reason for walking into the kitchen was non-canon filler content. So the next time you forget something instantly, try not to think of it as your brain failing. Think of it as your neurons running aggressive spring cleaning. A little messy, a little overpowered, occasionally deleting something mission critical, but mostly just trying to keep the system from collapsing under the weight of every random thought, awkward conversation, and useless fact you've ever collected. And honestly, that's probably for the best. Because if there's one thing this video proves, it's that forgetting isn't weakness, it's maintenance. Your mind is constantly choosing what survives, what fades, and what gets pushed into the psychological basement next to old passwords and your 8th grade presentation trauma. So, if you enjoyed this video, do us a favor. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell before your DLPFC decides this channel is low priority information. Because memory may be fragile, but good content deserves a fighting chance, and sometimes the cleanup crew just gets a little too enthusiastic.